Have you noticed lately that the whole question of whether reality is real, it's not just for philosophy seminars anymore?
Oh, absolutely not. It's gone completely viral.
It really has. It's a casual conversation now. You hear it in like Silicon Valley boardrooms, but also on late night TV.
And just in how people talk, we've all started using words like surreal or glitchy.
Glitchy, yeah. Or dreamlike. And not about something profound, just checking the news can feel that way.
It's a huge cultural shift.
Yeah.
I mean, for thousands of years, questioning the material world was, for mystics, for really deep thinkers.
Your exclusive domain.
Right. But when that kind of language goes mainstream, when millions of people start feeling that same shared tension, that something is just a little off-kilter.
It means something bigger is happening.
It signals that the collective psychological ground is shaking. We're all feeling this subtle sense that the rules of the cosmos, or at least how we see them, are, well, they feel less rigid than they used to.
Okay, so let's really unpack that tension, because that's our mission for this deep dive. We are absolutely not here to try and prove if we're in a simulation or a dream. That's not the goal.
No, the goal is much more practical.
Exactly. We want to understand why this question is a cultural obsession right now. What's the history behind humans asking this? And most importantly, what's the practical benefit for you, for our listeners, in even thinking about this?
Because the experience driving this isn't just theoretical. People are reporting real shared anomalies.
Like what specifically?
Well, time. For one, people feel like time is just warped, it's speeding up, or it's slowing down dramatically.
I hear that all the time.
And dreams feeling more vivid, more emotionally real than, say, your memories from yesterday afternoon.
Yeah.
Plus that unmistakable feeling of increased déjà vu, or those startling synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that just seem to defy the odds.
That pervasive sense of glitchiness, that's what's driving the search for answers.
It is. And here's where it gets really fascinating. Because this idea has been pulled out of the academic world and into the mainstream by some incredibly high-profile people. This isn't just a fringe theory anymore.
And we have to start with the most vocal one, the person who really lit the fuse on this.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. He is the one who took the modern simulation argument and made it a headline.
He's the primary driver, for sure.
Wow.
And he grounds it in something very accessible. Statistical reasoning. It's deceptively simple, but is really powerful.
His line is famous now. He says the odds that we're living in base reality,
The original unsimulated reality,
are 1 in billions.
it sounds like a crazy number, but his logic is based on a trend we can all see. The advancement of technology, specifically video games.
Right. He says, look back at the 1970s, we had Pong, just a couple of pixels on a screen.
A dot and two lines.
A dot and 2 lines. And now you fast forward to today, and we have these photorealistic, massive, multiplayer 3D worlds, millions of people interacting at the same time in a generated reality.
The acceleration is just. It's geometric. It's undeniable.
Yeah.
So his argument is, if that trend continues for just a few more decades,
Which seems likely.
then future civilizations will be able to run billions of historically accurate, high-fidelity, ancestor simulations.
Simulations of us.
Exactly. And if you accept that premise, that it's possible, and that they'd be interested in doing it, then the math is unavoidable.
The conclusion is that there will be far, far more simulated realities than the one original base reality.
Which means, statistically, you are much more likely to be in one of the billions of simulations.
Than in the one single original. It really is a compelling statistical trap.
It is, but that's the tech argument. The philosophical backbone for this whole modern conversation that really comes from Nick Bostrom.
He's the one who formalized it, right? Back in 2003.
Yeah, his paper gave the whole thing its intellectual spine. He framed it as a trilemma.
A trilemma. So a choice between 3 possibilities.
Right. And he says at least one of them must be true. First, that almost no civilizations ever reach technological maturity.
Okay, so they destroy themselves first.
Or second, that the ones who do make it just lose all interest in running ancestor simulations. They just don't care to.
Oh.
Or third, that we are almost certainly living in a simulation. His point is the idea that we're the special ones, the lucky ones, living in this single base reality. It's just extremely unlikely from a probability standpoint.
It forces you to really think about the future of computing. And it's not just him. Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist, he's on board with the core challenge.
He is. He's publicly given it better than 50-50 odds.
And his reasoning is because he just hasn't found a strong, a knockout argument against it.
No one has, which is telling. And then you have a philosopher like David Chalmers in his book Reality Plus Then, who's really digging into the implications.
It's his angle on it.
He asks a really profound question. If a simulated world feels real, if it functions consistently and you experience it as your reality, is it actually less real? He suggests that the distinction between a perfect simulation and base reality might only matter to the programmer, not to the person living inside.
It's amazing how many different fields are converging on this. It's not just academics, it's the people building these worlds, too.
Right, like Tim Sweeney, the CEO of Epic Games. He created the Unreal Engine. He sees the power of digital world building every single day, and he's right there with them on the potential.
And maybe the most compelling part is that this is moving beyond theory. There are physicists actually looking for ways to test it.
That's the really exciting frontier.
Yeah.
You have someone like UK physicist Melvin Vopson, who's working in information physics.
Information physics. So what exactly is he looking for? A glitch in the matrix.
Something like that, but more subtle. He's exploring this idea of mass energy information equivalence. He theorizes that information isn't just an abstract concept, it's a physical thing, like mass, like energy.
Okay. So how would that prove anything?
Well, he's looking for signs of data optimization in the laws of physics. Think about it. If we're in a simulation, the programmer wouldn't waste infinite processing power. The system would be efficient.
They would use compression, shortcuts.
Exactly. So Vopson is searching for a hard limit on the amount of information a fundamental particle can contain. If he finds that particles have a finite, quantifiable information value, and that it seems optimized.
That would look a lot like a computer program designed for efficiency.
It would. And it would shift this whole conversation from pure philosophy into empirical science.
So you have this perfect storm. You have the tech explosion, the philosophical rigor, and now cutting-edge physics, all pointing at this one massive question.
And it brings us right back to that core idea we want to explore today.
That the illusion may not be the world itself. The illusion might be forgetting that we are actively participating in it.
And that recognition of participation, that's the key. That's the transformative part.
It really is. And as we go deeper into this, if this kind of exploration into reality's nature resonates with you, make sure you're following or subscribe to The Deep Dive. We love digging into these big ideas, and we love having you as part of this curious, reflective community. We're going to be building on this all season. So let's get into the modern catalyst. We've laid out what the hypothesis is, but why now? Why is 2024, 2025 the moment this idea just exploded into the mainstream?
I think it's a combination of things, but it really boils down to technological saturation. Our lives are just completely woven into digital experiences now.
We're surrounded by screens.
All the time. And they're not just screens, they're portals. We carry entire worlds around in our pockets. We can instantly access realities that are completely separate from the physical room we're sitting in.
So our visual reality is constantly split. Our attention is always divided between the physical world and the data projected on a piece of glass.
And that has to have a profound effect on how our brains even define what's real. We've normalized putting on a VR headset and interacting with a fully rendered digital world.
We're basically training ourselves to accept digital reality as equivalent to, or sometimes even more compelling than, base reality.
Exactly. And that makes a whole simulation hypothesis just intuitively easier to grasp than it would have been 50 years ago. But the real earthquake, the factor that truly dissolved the foundation, that has to be generative AI.
The AI blur, that feels like the crucial psychological tipping point.
It is, because we are watching the total dissolution of human authorship, of authenticity. Until like 5 minutes ago, a photograph was proof. It was the gold standard. This happened.
A written word was tied to a specific human consciousness.
That link is now severed. It's gone.
Yeah.
When a machine can create a photorealistic image of a person who never existed.
Or write a novel that's indistinguishable from a human author.
Or generate video of an event that never happened. The line between real and generated just vanishes overnight. We can't trust our senses or our tech to verify authenticity anymore.
And that destabilizes our sense of self, too. Our identity, which is the core of our personal reality.
How so?
Well, think about the digital self, the curated, optimized avatar we build on social media. For a lot of people, that persona feels more real, more defined than the actual messy person standing in line at the grocery store.
And AI just puts that on steroids. It supercharges our ability to create and customize that digital generated identity.
So if the things we're creating are now sophisticated enough to generate their own convincing worlds and identities,
It's a very short leap to asking, could we be the product of a similar process?
yeah, we're watching simulated minds being born, so of course we're going to wonder if we're simulated ourselves.
And that technological blur feeds directly into this massive societal problem of the fractured narrative. This might be the biggest collective psychological challenge of our time.
For generations, we all lived in a basically shared reality.
We did. We had mass media. 3 TV channels, a few national newspapers. They had their biases, sure, but they provided one big, overarching cultural story.
We might have argued about the details, but we all agreed on the basic setting, the basic facts.
But the algorithm destroyed that. Social media doesn't give us a shared world. It builds custom reality tunnels for each of us.
Designed to do one thing: maximize engagement.
Right. So you are fed a constant stream of content that confirms what you already believe. It just deepens your separation from the person next door who is living in a completely opposite, algorithmically generated reality.
The consequence is just. It's profound. We don't share an informational world anymore.
Not at all. What one group sees as objective, verifiable truth, another sees as a complete, calculated lie.
And when you lose the shared narrative, you lose the shared definition of reality itself. You're just left with subjectivity.
Which naturally pushes people toward the idea that maybe the whole structure is just a malleable construct. The rules seem to bend completely based on your inputs and what the algorithm decides to show you.
It makes reality feel like contextual software, not fixed, rigid hardware.
Exactly. And that brings us to a really crucial historical point. We need to remember that humans don't question reality when things are stable and predictable.
We question it when the old models stop working.
And that historical context is so important. This feels unique to our time because the tech is unique, but the psychological crisis, it's not new at all.
Confusion about reality doesn't automatically mean collapse.
No, it means transformation is coming. We can look back and see at least 3 other times where the physical world stayed the same, but the psychological reality just shattered, forcing a complete rewrite of what it means to be human.
So where do we start? The first big one.
The first and maybe the biggest in terms of our identity was the Copernican shift back in the 16th century.
You really have to try and put yourself in that mindset.
You do. For generations, everyone believed, with the full backing of the church, of philosophy, of what you could see with your own eyes, that the earth was the center of everything.
Unmoving. Divine. We were special. The sun, the moon, the stars, everything revolved around us.
That belief was the bedrock of all meaning and authority. And then Copernicus, and later Galileo, proved it was wrong.
The earth was just another rock spinning around the sun. We weren't the center of the universe. We were peripheral.
The psychological trauma of that was immense. The physical world hadn't changed a bit, but the rules of the cosmos had shattered.
If the foundation they'd been taught for millennia was fundamentally wrong, what else could be wrong?
It created this profound existential anxiety, a collective experience of being unmoored from reality, forcing people to question everything. That loss of being the center of the story was a wound that took centuries to heal.
It proves that just new information can break your reality.
Absolutely. And then the second big shift, moving forward to the 19th century, wasn't about the cosmos, it was about machines. The Industrial Revolution.
And this one is a really direct physical parallel to the simulation anxiety we feel today.
It is. Before factories, life ran on organic time. Your day was shaped by the sun, by the seasons, by the needs of your own body.
You worked when the sun was high, you rested when you were tired, the clock was natural.
The machine changed all of that. Reality shifted to machine time. It was dictated by the mechanical clock and the factory whistle. Your day was suddenly broken into these rigid, arbitrary chunks. 10 hours, 12 hours. Start at 6 a.m. sharp.
You had to obey these external, non-negotiable rules set by a mechanism.
Yeah, and people wrote about this constantly, about the psychological toll. They felt like they were governed by this inhuman external system. Their identity as a craftsman was gone, replaced by the identity of a laborer, a small, interchangeable part.
A cog in a machine.
That feeling right there of being a tiny, predefined cog operating inside a vast, predetermined mechanical system, that is the exact psychological blueprint for the modern fear of being an NPC. A non-player character.
The machine became the metaphor for a reality that governed us instead of one we participated in.
And then just a century later, another crisis. The mid-20th century. the atomic age. And this one questioned the very solidity of matter itself.
Until 1945, a wall was a wall. A chair was solid. You could rely on the stability of the physical world.
The atomic bomb completely redefined everything, revealed the world wasn't made of solid blocks at all. It was made of energy, held together by these incredibly tenuous forces.
An instability that could be unlocked and annihilate us all.
When that bomb went off, the entire framework of reality shook. If a chair is mostly empty space and concentrated energy, then what are we?
Not solid, fixed things, just temporary patterns of energy.
And that crisis of solidity drove art into abstraction. It drove philosophy into existentialism. It forced humanity to confront this profoundly precarious existence.
So every time that foundation shakes cosmologically, mechanistically, or materially, we're forced to ask that same question.
Is this real? And if it's not, what are the true rules? We're just in the fourth wave of that questioning. Only this time, the crisis is digital, it's informational.
That historical context really helps. It makes this idea of a fluid reality feel, well, less crazy. Because we see that these reality bends aren't just theoretical. They're things we actually experience ourselves.
Right, especially in those transitional states between waking and sleeping. Our own subjective experiences often defy the neat, logical rules of our waking life.
And we know from practice that the line between our internal world and the external world is it's incredibly porous.
Think about having a really intense emotional dream. Not just random images, but a dream about loss or deep fear. You wake up and your heart is pounding. You're physically sweating.
You're exhausted, as if you actually ran a marathon.
Exactly. Your body, the external material thing, registered the internal psychological event as a real physical experience. It shows that the subjective reality of the mind can directly imprint physical consequences on the body.
So the divide between the mental system and the material system isn't some absolute wall. It's negotiable.
It suggests that this external objective reality we hold so sacred is actually really permeable. It's sensitive to our consciousness, to our attention.
It's less like a giant fixed machine and more like a field of potential or interactive software.
And when you start noticing those deep synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that feel too perfect to be random.
Like they're structured just for you.
It further suggests that reality isn't just random noise. It sometimes behaves like an interconnected system that's giving you personalized feedback based on the questions you're asking.
And if the world is interacting with you, then you're a participant. You're not just a passive observer.
That's the leap.
Okay, before we dive into the core debate code versus consciousness, I just want to take a moment and thank all of you who support this work. It's really the heart of our community.
That support truly is what allows us to keep exploring these complex frontier topics. We are so incredibly grateful for everyone who follows the show and engages with the community we're building.
And if you want to follow along with this series, get our newsletter, get updates on future deep dives, you can always visit phillippaisling.com. Thank you for making these explorations possible. All right, so let's get to the heart of it. If reality is unstable, what are the competing explanations we're using? Right now, there seem to be two dominant frameworks, the technological one and the spiritual one.
And what's so fascinating is how similar their descriptions of how reality functions are.
So this is the core debate. Path A, the simulation, the hard, tech, materialist view.
And Path B, the dream, the soft, ancient, consciousness-based view.
Let's spend some real time on Path A first, the simulation. The core metaphor here is the computer.
The whole underlying assumption is what's called reductive materialism. Everything can be broken down into information, computation.
So the universe is just a giant complex machine. It's running algorithms.
And the laws of physics, gravity, the speed of light, those are just the fundamental lines of code, the fixed parameters of the program. You can't break them without some kind of admin access.
Which implies there has to be a programmer somewhere, an external system administrator.
Right. And that entity isn't some god. It's an advanced intelligence, a future human civilization, a super AI, an alien species. Someone started the simulation, pressed run, and is now just watching the results.
The emotional feeling of this view is, well, it can be really cold, almost claustrophobic.
It creates a narrative of separation. There's us, the simulated, and then there's them, the programmer.
And it raises all these intense fears. Are we just trapped in a lab experiment? Is our suffering just data for someone's research?
And the big existential fear. Are we just NPCs, non-player characters? Is our experience just filler, generated to provide texture for the real players.
It feels very deterministic. Our ability to choose is fundamentally limited by the code. Even if we realize we're in a simulation, we can't actually change the rules unless we find some kind of glitch or a backdoor.
It's a very mechanical Newtonian way of seeing reality, just updated with software language.
Okay, now let's compare that to Path B, the dream, the ancient soft view. Here, the metaphor is the mind, consciousness itself.
This is the framework you find in ancient traditions. Buddhism, Hinduism, mysticism. It goes back thousands of years.
They didn't have computers, so they used the most complex, fluid thing they knew, the dream state.
Exactly. They described reality not as solid matter, but as Maya, which is often translated as illusion, but it's more subtle than that. It's more like a mental construct, a measurement.
So in this narrative, reality is a cosmic dream. It's driven by a single, unified consciousness, often called Brahman or Source.
And there's no external hardware. There's no server farm in the sky. There's only awareness playing this profound game of forgetting itself. The laws of reality aren't dictated by code. They're dictated by the rules of the mind.
The emotional impact of this view is completely different.
Totally. It's organic, it's warm, it promotes this idea of radical connection.
Because in a dream, the dreamer is the dreamscape.
You're not trapped in the world. You are the world, just playing a temporary role you've forgotten. It implies ultimate unity, non-separation.
And the constraints, the limitations, they don't exist because of code. They exist because of belief.
You're only afraid of the monster in the dream until you realize you're the one dreaming it. The moment of lucidity isn't about finding a glitch. It's about recognizing your true identity is with the dreamer, not the character.
What's so wild is that whether you use the word code or consciousness, both frameworks describe the experience of reality in almost exactly the same way.
They really do. In both a deep dream and a perfect simulation, the world feels completely real while you're in it. The logic is internal and consistent.
You only question the fundamental rules like gravity or your fixed identity when a pattern breaks, when a glitch happens.
And here's a key point. Both seem to require observation to sustain them.
How so?
Well, experienced dream masters know that your focus, your expectations, your emotional state, they all profoundly shape the dream. Attention directs the narrative. And in the simulation view, conscious observation is what's needed to render the experience, which, by the way, is exactly what quantum mechanics tells us.
The system only renders what's necessary for the current observer.
It's the most efficient design, whether that system is conscious or computational.
And this leads us to the big synthesis, the aha moment we've been building towards.
The big question.
Are simulation and dream actually different things? Or are we just using the language of our time to describe the exact same mystery?
It's an evolution of metaphor. It's always been driven by our technology. The human mind tries to grasp this indescribable thing, but we're always limited by the best tools we have.
2,000 years ago, you look at the fluidity of reality, how it shifts with emotion, its beauty, its fragility, and the best metaphor you have for that mystery is the spirit, or the dream.
It was the highest form of reality bending that ancient people knew.
And today, we look at that exact same fluidity, the contextual rules, the dependence on observation, the fact that matter isn't really solid, and the most complex metaphor we have is the computer, the code.
Our ability to create these incredibly sophisticated digital worlds has become the new benchmark we measure the cosmos against.
So the realization is that simulated reality is just the modern word for the ancient idea of Maya.
And the programmer is the modern term for source consciousness. The underlying mystery is the same. The vocabulary has just been updated.
And modern physics seems to be the bridge that connects them. Quantum mechanics gives us the scientific language for what the mystics observed.
It tells us, pretty definitively, that matter isn't solid stuff. It's probability waves. It only collapses into a fixed, observable state when consciousness interacts with it.
To someone who's deep in spiritual practice, that non-solidity, that reliance on conscious input, that looks exactly like a thought, like intention-shaping form. It looks like a dream being created.
But to a coder or a systems engineer, that same process looks like data optimization.
Right. Why waste the processing power rendering every atom in the Andromeda galaxy in a fixed state?
You don't. You just hold it as potential, as a probability wave, until an observer needs to look at it. The system only renders what's needed when it's needed. It's the most efficient way to run a simulation.
So the conclusion is just. It's really powerful. Whether you call it probability waves or a collective thought or optimized data, the functional rules of our reality are being described identically by mystics, coders, and physicists.
The language has changed, but the mystery is one and the same.
So now we have to get to the most important practical question of all, the so what.
Yes.
If the world we're in is not the final, fixed, base reality, whether it's a computer program from the future or a cosmic dream, how are we supposed to relate to it? What do we do with that information?
This is the pivot point. This is where we move from theory and anxiety into actual empowerment, because the practical implication is huge.
Yeah.
It completely redefines your relationship to every problem, every constraint, every conflict in your life.
Okay, lay that out for us. What's the contrast?
If you are a committed materialist, if you believe this reality is hard and fixed, then you are by definition a victim of circumstance.
A wall is a wall.
A wall is a wall. External events, a market crash, a relationship ending, they dictate your fate. Your role is to react. You're constrained by these outside forces. But the moment you seriously entertain the possibility that this is a simulation or a dream, your entire posture changes. You stop looking at that wall as a fixed, unchangeable barrier of hard matter.
And you start looking for the door.
Or the loophole.
Or the contact.
Or the hidden cam prompt. You shift, fundamentally, from being a passive observer who is subjected to the rules to an active participant who is learning the rules.
And this shift, this is what we're calling lucidity. This is the whole point of this cultural moment of questioning.
And lucidity is not about escaping reality. It's about dramatically increasing your agency within the reality you're currently in.
We know this from lucid dreaming, right? When you become lucid in a dream, you don't just instantly wake up.
Not usually, no. You realize, I'm dreaming. And that realization is the key. It gives you options.
The constraints might still be there. Gravity still works. The setting might still be hostile.
But your relationship to it changes. You move from primal fear and reaction to a measured, intentional response. You get to choose your action instead of just being swept along by the plot.
So how do you operationalize that? How do you apply it in waking life?
It requires a consistent focus on your own attention. It means stopping the unconscious autopilot. So much of our suffering comes from these recurring loops, old traumas, conditioned responses.
They're basically pre-written lines of code.
They are. A specific trigger gets pulled and the script runs every single time. Lucidity is the key to overwriting that code.
So you use the tension, the feeling that reality is glitchy.
You use it to fuel intense self-awareness. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You start asking, what pattern am I participating in that's creating this outcome?
You start looking for those points of permeability. You focus on the synchronicities.
You're essentially engaging the system's debug mode. You're looking for the feedback loops that show you the system is responsive to where you put your attention.
And that changes how you behave. If you go into a conflict thinking, this is a fixed person who will always act this way, you're running a fixed script. The outcome is already written.
But if you approach it thinking, this is another player in the simulation, and how I interact, what I expect, can actually shape the outcome, you introduce new variables. You become an agent of change in the system.
This is the huge opportunity of this cultural moment. We're not questioning reality to fall into panic or nihilism.
No, we're questioning it that we can wake up inside the game, recognize the underlying system, and start directing our own narrative instead of just being subjected to the default script.
It requires a ton of humility, though, and focus.
Immense focus. It means seeing the world not as a fixed machine, but as customizable data. And that data responds to belief, to intention, and to attention. The whole shift is from I am trapped to I am participating in my own trapping.
Just having this conversation is a massive step towards that lucidity. But as we start to wind down, we need to add a word of caution, a bit of reassurance.
This exploration, this new awareness, it's enough for today. You don't need to have all the answers right now. We know from practice that this kind of awareness grows slowly. It's like a sunrise. You can't rush it.
Because there are real risks to gaining this awareness too quickly, aren't there?
There are. If you just rip back the curtain without being properly grounded, you risk falling into nihilism. The feeling that if nothing is fixed, then nothing matters.
Which can justify just disengaging completely.
Or the opposite risk, ego inflation. The feeling that, oh, I know the world's a simulation, so I'm somehow superior or more real than the people around me.
And you start treating others like NPCs.
Exactly. And then there's the risk of pure escapism, using this whole idea as an excuse to check out from your real, tangible responsibilities, your relationships, your work, your community.
The dream metaphor is important here. Sometimes the lesson in the dream was meant to continue, and waking up too fast just ends the learning experience.
And the goal is always to become lucid so you can engage more fully, not so you can escape.
So we want to invite you, as you reflect on all this, to just start noticing the patterns in your own life. Have you noticed reality feeling a little different lately? When did you first start questioning it all? Was it after a big dream? A sudden burst of synchronicities?
Use that questioning. Use that tension. Let it be your personal invitation into lucidity. Don't fight the feeling that something is glitchy. Use it as fuel for a deeper, more conscious exploration of the rules you're living by.
This question, the nature of reality, it's really the foundation for the rest of our series on awareness and personal agency.
And we are going to continue this exploration in our very next deep dive in the Becoming Lucid series. We're going to get into the practical applications of dream states, specifically exploring lucid dreaming and spiritual growth, how dream work can help you navigate life.
We really hope you'll join us for that essential next step. Please follow, like, and share this deep dive if it gave you something to think about. And you can always visit philliphazeling.com for updates on the series and the community.
But as you go about your day, let's leave you with one last provocative thought to chew on.
If you couldn't prove what reality is, how would you choose to live anyway?